Hold on.
That never gets old, does it?
My running mate right here.
Exactly. First of all, I just want to say that was definitely the first time I've ever been introduced by a presidential candidate, so that was good. I have a whole list of questions that I want to ask, but one thing that you were just talking about struck me that I want you to talk about, because I too came in through the back, through the kitchen, and that is definitely how you approach a lot of these events, and people don't really realize that, but for you it is personal.
Yeah. I mean, my parents, this was the jobs they did. I always tell people my parents were incredibly successful people, because the American dream's not about how much money you make or how many buildings have your name on it. The American dream, I wasn't talking about anybody in particular, I'm just saying, it wasn't about, the American dream is about achieving happiness. When you become a firefighter, or a police officer, or a teacher, or a nurse, you know you're not going to become a billionaire. What you want is what my parents achieved. And what my parents achieved working as a bartender and a maid at a hotel, after arriving here with nothing, no education, no money, the first words my dad learned in English were, "I'm looking for a job." You know what my parents achieved? They owned a home in a safe and stable neighborhood. They retired with dignity, and they left all 4 of their children better off than themselves. That's the American dream.
Now, I know you weren't talking about any particular person when you just
Well, I probably was, but I mean, trying to be nice.
So let's go there. Donald Trump was supposed to be here this morning. He backed out. He instead was in Kansas. I sense that the crowd has an opinion on that. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, this is the American Conservative Union, and so, I mean, it's usually reserved for conservatives. No, but this matters. I mean, look, either the ideas behind conservatism matter or they do not. And if they do not, then it's fine, but I believe they do. It is not enough to say, vote for me because I'm angrier and over the top and I'm going to do and say things no one else is going to do. I get that anger and frustration, I really do. But let me tell you something. I've said this before. It is not a coincidence that there are people, a plethora of young conservative leaders in this country in their 40s and 50s. Myself, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Scott Walker, Susanna Martinez, Nikki Haley, Paul Ryan. Why? Why? Why are there so many young conservatives now serving our country? I'll tell you why. Because we grew up in the era of Reagan. And Ronald Reagan looked and acted nothing like Donald Trump. And look at the Democrats. Who is the young and up-and-coming Democrat? Bernie Sanders.
Senator, let me ask you a question about that, though. And I asked Ted Cruz about this week as well. You're stepping up your rhetoric big time against Donald Trump on the question of whether or not he is a true conservative. You started doing that at CNN's debate last week. You're calling him a con artist and a fraud. If you believe those things, why did you wait until February of 2016 to say so?
Well, a couple reasons why. Number one is because for much of this campaign, I've been fighting off other people attacking me, and so that takes a little bit of time too. And the other is, look, I didn't get into this to beat up on the other candidates. I really didn't. I had hoped that voters, if you had told me a year ago that the front runner at this stage in the Republican campaign would be a supporter of Planned Parenthood, who says he doesn't stand with Israel, who says that, who has a long record of supporting government-sponsored health care, I would say, on what planet would that be the Republican front runner? But it's happened, and I think we have to ask ourselves, why have we allowed that to happen? So I don't think any of us anticipated it.
And why is that? What is the question for that? Why have conservatives have voted and voted for him?
Well, I mean, part of the reason, and I think you're one of the reasons why, and I don't mean to take you on this, but I want to be clear, because I've now been sitting here for 5 minutes, and 2 of the 3 questions have been about Donald Trump. That's the reason why he keeps getting all this attention.
That's fair, but he is the front runner. That's fair, but he is the front runner, and you've been making your campaign about Donald Trump.
No, but even before he was the front runner, Donald would offend someone personally, he'd make fun of a disabled reporter or attack a woman journalist, and he would dominate news coverage. Of course he's going to get all this attention. It's fine, I'm not complaining about it. All I'm saying to you is, the reason why we talk about it and the reason why a lot of this has happened is that the other night at the debate, I didn't do the count, but over half the questions I asked were somehow related to my opinion of Donald Trump. I'm more than happy to share with you my opinion on Donald Trump, but I'm running for president because I think this country needs to re-embrace the Constitution, this country needs to re-embrace free enterprise, and needs to re-embrace a strong national defense.
Okay. We have some questions from Twitter. People were submitting questions on Twitter, and Lisa Gariella asked this question: how are your children responding to your campaign? Do they understand how important and serious this is? And before you answer that question, I want to put my mom hat on for a second, because you're the proud father of 4. I'm the mother of a 4-year-old son. And I'm having trouble letting him watch the news because things have gotten so vulgar and so over the top that I don't want him to think that it's okay to act like that.
Right.
How do you, and I'm not alone, I know a lot of people have said that, how do you feel as a father and a presidential candidate about how low things have gone?
Well, I mean, no, but I'll tell you, this is related to the real question. I'm glad you asked it. My kids were on with me on the campaign trail a lot, from New Hampshire, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. Every day when I woke up, I was glad they were there, not just because they were my kids, but because I looked at them and it reminded me, this is what it's about. You're literally trying to decide what kind of country it will be like when they're my age, when they're a little younger, but doing things for the first time. I mentioned this in the speech. You know, God has blessed my family. He has protected our children. He's protected us. They've handled it extremely well. I don't think we've ever had a negative moment in the campaign with them. But that's because God has protected us and shielded us. I really believe that He's done that for us, and He's done that for other families as well. But for me, it is a daily reminder that what we are fighting for here ultimately is what we're deciding now in this election will decide what America looks like in 10 years. And yes, I think it is one of the things you asked me. I don't want us to have a president that we constantly have to be explaining to our kids, look, I know that's what the president did, but you shouldn't do that. I don't want that. We actually had a president like that not long ago. It was really bad.
But I'll leave that one alone. But just to follow up, but the rhetoric has been, I mean, I understand you're saying that you are trying to answer him and some of the things that he has been saying, but you know, I can't explain to my kid about this, you're talking about hands and things like that.
Well, look. I'll be more than happy to answer another Trump question. I don't know, Donald Trump, he might have grown up the way he did with a lot of money and going to boarding schools. I can tell you this, where I grew up, if someone keeps punching people in the face, eventually someone's gonna have to stand up and punch them back. So,
I want to ask another question from Twitter. This is on the Supreme Court from @SarahLeeAnn. Do you think President Obama should appoint a justice to SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, prior to the end of his term? Why or why not?
No, absolutely not. And the reason why is following. First of all, I agree with Joe Biden in 1992 when he said we should not be electing Supreme Court or nominating Supreme Court justices in an election year, much less in the 8th year of this president. First of all, the Supreme Court can function with 8 justices. The number 9 is set by Congress. I'm not advocating we do this, but if we wanted to change it to 8 or 7, we could. There's no magic number 9. Number 2, this president's completely unaccountable. He is going to be nominating someone to what is basically a lifetime appointment, and we can't hold it against him in an election. So we're going to have a debate in this country over this. There's going to be an election in November. God willing, we're going to nominate and elect a conservative, and that conservative will then appoint, I hope, someone more like Justice Scalia than the kind of nominees we've gotten out of this president.
So do you think that all candidates now, Republican and Democrat, should pledge not to nominate a Supreme Court justice in their last year of their term?
Sure, I would do that now, and that's, by the way, has been the practice for over 80 years in this country. The only time they want to bend the rules or change the rules if there's a Democrat in office, so they've all ignoring what Joe Biden said in 1992, but it goes back to the point I made. This is a lifetime appointment. You cannot, unless this person that gets appointed murders someone, it's going to be very difficult to remove them from the court. And so the bottom line is we should not be putting someone, when the balance of the court is at stake, in that position when in fact Barack Obama will not be held accountable for it by the electorate.
Okay. I have another question. It is about something Donald Trump said, but it's on an important issue, which is torture. You were standing next to him in the debate. You heard what he said on torture, and then he reversed himself, saying he understands that the United States is bound by laws and treaties and will not order our military or other officials to violate those laws. What do you think of that, and what do you think is the most important position of a president on the issue of torture?
Well, I think the most important issue, the most important job of president is to be commander-in-chief. A commander-in-chief will never ask the armed forces of the United States to do something that would violate the rules of war, or quite frankly, the internal practices of our military. But I want to be clear about interrogation, okay? We have to understand that this is not about torture. No one here is asking for torture. But you cannot use the same interrogation techniques on a terrorist that you do on a criminal. Here's why. A criminal, when you are interrogating a criminal, what you are trying to do is gather evidence for a trial so you can convict him. When you are interrogating a terrorist, what you are trying to gather is information to prevent a future terrorist attack. It's not about evidence for trial. And I don't talk about interrogation techniques. You know why I don't talk about interrogation techniques? Because when you describe interrogation techniques, terrorists they do practice evading interrogation techniques. How to evade telling you the truth. So we are going to interrogate terrorists, but right now that's not even an issue. You know why? Because Barack Obama doesn't send them anywhere. He's releasing terrorists from Guantanamo. Who are we going to interrogate? When I'm president, if we capture a terrorist, they're going to Guantanamo and we will find out everything they know.
Twitter question from Steve Klaus. He wants to know, how will your faith figure into your presidency?
Well, my faith is the biggest influence on my life. And by the way, I think that's something people should be proud of. I'm a Christian. I cannot impose my faith on anyone. My faith is the free gift of salvation that you have to willingly accept. But I can tell you, my faith teaches me this. My faith teaches me in order for me to serve the Lord, I have to serve others. It teaches me that I have to care for people that are hungry and for the less fortunate and for those among us who are facing difficult times. Now, Democrats would say the only way to care for people like that is through more government. The reason why I believe in free enterprise is because I know that free enterprise allows people who are struggling to find a better job and a better life. Does government have a role to play in a safety net? Yes, not as a way of life, not as a lifestyle, as a way to get people back on their feet so they can find a good job and never rely on government again. My faith influences me to believe that, and my faith influences me to believe that all human life is worthy of the protection of our laws.
A political question. This, in a week and a half, as you well know, is the Florida primary. A crucial test for your campaign. Governor John Kasich said that if he doesn't win his home state of Ohio, he'll drop out. What will you do if you don't win?
Well, I've never based my campaign on one state, but I can tell you this. We will win the state of Florida. We will beat Donald Trump there the way we beat Charlie Crist. I have experience at beating people who say who they are, who don't say who they truly are. I have experience at beating people who portray themselves to be one thing but are actually something else, and you're going to find that out on March 15th in Florida.
One person who is not going to be on the ballot is Jeb Bush. I know that the two of you have spoken. Have you asked him for his endorsement?
Yeah, I don't discuss private conversations with anyone.
Would you like to have his endorsement?
I would like to have as many endorsements as I can get because I want to unify the party, but I'm going to discuss private conversations. Suffice it to say that no matter what happens in a campaign, I said throughout the campaign repeatedly that I had tremendous admiration for Jeb Bush, that I believed he was the greatest governor in Florida history, although Rick Scott's a very good governor too, and that I will always have tremendous affection and respect for him, despite the fact that because of a weird quirk of fate, we ended up running for the same office at the same time. I did not run for president to stop Jeb Bush. I ran for president because I believe America's greatest days lie ahead if we do what needs to be done right now in 2016.
This is another question from Twitter from dtoller13. To all candidates, best answer gets his vote.
Oh, okay. No pressure. Where does he live?
Well, he didn't say. Miami, no. What is your plan to unite the country as president, i.e. racial police trust?
Well, look, first of all, let's be clear. The police departments in this country are among the finest people in our country. I mean, they just are. The other day, we were reminded. In Virginia, a week ago, 3 police officers were shot. One of them was a Marine reservist. She was on her first day on the job and she died. So we have tremendous admiration and respect for our police officers, and I thank God every day for what they do for our families. I also think in this country, irrespective of police departments, Putting aside the police department issue, yes, there are a significant number of Americans that live in majority minority communities who feel like they're locked out of the American dream. And if a significant percentage of the American family feels like they're being left behind, we have an issue, we have to confront it. And here's how we're going to confront it. We're going to confront it by embracing free enterprise. It is the only economic model in the world where you can make people better off without pulling anyone else down. I believe free enterprise works because I've lived it. My parents would never have been able to achieve for our family what they achieved in America anywhere else on the planet. Because almost anywhere else in the world, your future is decided by whether or not your parents are the right people and are connected to the right people. Not in America. That's not who we've been. That's not who we're going to be. And I think that's the best for all Americans, irrespective of your background. In the end, all this hyphenation stuff, that's fine. But we're all Americans. And if I'm President of the United States, I will be a president for all Americans.
Just one final question. Just on a personal level, what has been the most surprising part of this campaign? I mean, it is grueling. Obviously, you're sitting here with the flu, right? So how have you embraced this in a way that maybe you didn't think you would?
Well, there's a lot of surprising parts about this campaign. I told you one of them. I never could have imagined that the front runner in a Republican nomination would be someone that refuses to stand with Israel, defends Planned Parenthood, you know, all these other positions that Donald Trump has taken. But that aside, here's the great part about it. I knew this already, but this campaign reminded me of this. America is not a government. America is a nation and people. America is the country where this very morning, people got up and went to work or opened their business or volunteered in the community. They're going out about their lives and doing great things, irrespective of who the president is going to be or not. Our government is messed up, but the American people are as great as they've ever been. What they need now are leaders that give them a chance. And this campaign has confirmed that. I was in South Carolina, and I went to a pregnancy crisis center. You've never heard about this place. It's not in any magazines. They don't get any movies made about them. There's no news articles. These people every day are saving lives. Young girls are coming into this pregnancy crisis center scared to death, thinking about ending an unborn life. And these people, through ministry and the Word of God and just loving them, are getting them to change their decisions. They are saving lives, literally. There are now people involved in this program whose lives were saved by this program. That's America.
Senator, thank you.
Thank you, Daniella.
Thank you so much.
Washington.
Appreciate it.